Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Hello and welcome to the latest look back at Talking Heads. The scrapping of proposals to introduce red squirrels to the Isle of Man, the effectiveness of community service orders in reducing reoffending, and the focus of MHKs were all topics for discussion this week. Here's Stu Peters with more.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
Should the role of the Isle of Man's Lieutenant Governor be reviewed? The Celtic League says it can't understand why Lieutenant Governors are still needed on the island. The latest incumbent, Sir Richard Gosney, was sworn in at the end of last week during a ceremony that took place in Douglas for the first time. Bernard Moffat of the Celtic League told Jason Roberts, besides the ideological opposition to having a governor to start with, he objects to the huge cost to the taxpayer. Does the island still need a lieutenant governor? Should representations be made with the UK people to have the position reviewed, or is it an important part of the island's position as a crown dependency? Stu, I did smile when I heard the comment that the role of lieutenant governor is a relic of past colonial times, says Mark. As far as the Isle of Man's relationship with the British Crown is currently, we're still in colonial times. The constitutional position of the Isle of Man as a crown dependency means that we are indeed still a colony, a self-governing one, but due to the presence of a governor and the right of the crown to reject, as well as to give assent to our laws, we remain colonial subjects of Brenda, which is a private eye reference, really. Brenda, not Betty then. All of the crown dependencies are classified as such. So in this modern age, we still have the outdated relationship with them over there. Oh, in that London place, I don't like it there. We'll never have a Manx-elected governor because that goes against the relationship that the Crown wishes to maintain. To alter this, we peasants will have to rise up. Up the revolution, says Mark. Oh, look out the windows, Queenie, the peasants are revolting. Yes, I know, I can smell them from here. Thank you, Mark. That's a script, actually, for a window company, isn't it? I think. What else have we got? The need for a governor is debatable, as is the need for a racist, anti-British Celtic League, says Tom. Oh, fighting talk there, Tom. This from Jamie says you feel that if the Sovereign, through her UK government, requires a representative on the island, then they should pay for him, her. Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I wonder how much of a benefit the governor is. And I expect that there are things that we're probably not aware of that the governor has to do as part of the job. So there must be some benefits, I assume, for the Isle of Man government. Otherwise, they would have made representations a long time ago, you would have thought, to get rid of. But quite what those are, I don't know. I mean, the beauty of this is that when I'm elected, and it is just a matter of time, obviously, as benevolent dictator for life, then we can sell off Government House to maybe one of these five-star hotel groups or whatever, and turn it into a hotel, because I want to live in the Castle Mona. I want to be nearer the sea. One of the great sadnesses of my life is that I've never managed to have a seaside apartment or anything. So I think the Castle Mona will do quite nicely. And hopefully we'll be able to land helicopters in the roof. So, Lieutenant Governor, do you think that we need one or not? Get in touch and tell us. Do you agree with the Celtic League? Is this a throwback to colonial days? Or, as Mark said, we're still a colony, so it's inevitable that we're going to end up with somebody like this? Or do you think that the president of Tynwald ought to take on a lot of those responsibilities? Stu, let it be known, Bernard Moffat does not speak for all Manx people regards the governor and other matters, although at times he purports to do so. These are his views and not mine, says Ali. In fairness, I don't think Bernard is saying that he's speaking on behalf of the Manx people. I think he's talking on behalf of nationalists in the Isle of Man, and he purports to do that, I think. But no, I think it's only fair that he's got a point of view on it, and long may that continue. I do think that Bernard has done a pretty good job over the years for the people that he's represented, and I quite admire that, although there are times that I fall out with him, especially when he complains about the fact that we have the Chief Minister on Manx Radio far too often. And that's exactly one of the criticisms when Bernard was in charge of the union that we were getting about him, that he was on the radio all the time. So yes, pot and kettle. Throughout Empire history, all colonies have had to pay their costs, so no way will the UK pay for his excellency. It's a subtle reminder of the nature of the relationship. It's not one of equals, says John. Yeah, I think that's very true. Stu, more bluster from a man who's an admitted Marxist, anti-British, anti-royalty, and who represents nobody. He quotes McVannon, who complained about island life but never put up a candidate at elections. I think it's only Manx Radio that give Mr. Moffat a house room. You see, the governor is part of our constitutional relationship with the Crown, so for the time being we're stuck with him. Stu, I don't always agree with Mr. Moffat, but I do today, says Sue. Good, okay. Mr. Moffat is not an admitted Marxist, Stu, says Simon. He describes himself as a social democrat with a small c, and you'll have to ask him yourself what that means. I've not seen him for ages, person to person. I used to interview him quite often when I worked in the newsroom, but I've not seen him for ages. But I will. I'll ask him about that. Thank you.
The Nation Station. Manx Radio.
Is community service a suitable form of punishment? The Department of Home Affairs says it's pleased with what it sees as the positive impact being made by community service orders. It's reportedly prompted a call for more organisations to work with the Prison and Probation Service to offer suitable projects in the future. Is community service a fitting punishment in some instances? Is it an important part of the rehabilitation process as well? Or do you favour harder sentencing regardless of the offence? Stu, I think that community service or a system of restorative justice where the offender meets the victim helps to improve society, although pure punishment in jail is sometimes necessary, says David H. Thanks, David. What else have we got? My view is that a community service order should only be enforced if the offence is minor enough that rehabilitation in prison would not be the best solution for the offender. The punishment must reflect the seriousness of the offence, and its primary focus must be to deter the offender from reoffending. Therefore, if a community service order will meet this objective for a relatively minor offence, then this should be the approach taken. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. All offenders are different and punishment should be tailored on this basis. However, what constitutes a minor offence rather than a major one can sometimes get a bit more complicated. And that from Blair. Good, thank you. Keep your thoughts coming in about this topic. I must admit that if I'd been caught out doing something that I shouldn't be, and it was a case of jail or community service, I wonder if I'd actually prefer jail. I assume that you're allowed to take books with you. I think it'd be an easier job actually spending time in a cell, especially if the Derby Hilton is as luxurious as some people would have us believe. I'm sure it's not, but I'd hate to be sort of sent out on work gangs cleaning up roads and things like that. But maybe that's just me. I know a lot of people prefer to be outside rather than in. So community service, having engaged with the service, getting them to do some work, what a nightmare. Soft option for sure. It was a joke. Minibus supervisor and equipment was to cost a fortune for a poor result. Needs sharpening up to make it work properly. Social payback should be just that. Hard graft, not just a day out. Alman prisoners should also be out working in full view, litter picking and ditching. Right then, yeah, you're possibly in orange jumpsuits and leg chains and guards on horses with pump-action shotguns and Ray-Bans. I take your point, yeah. It's something that I've never seen a work gang out, and maybe that would act as part of the deterrent, being more serious about it. Prison, dear Stuart, what I witnessed firsthand is that there is no rehabilitation. There's a great talk in the media, and there are staff employed to rehab, but they're prevented by one person who's all-powerful head of security. The guys would love to go out to work, for example, when the heavy snowfall. These guys are not security risk. What is criminal is that the same lads go out and come back into prison. Okie dokie. All right, well, if you've got a point of view on this, like I say, I would, I think, prefer prison to community service, but a lot of people quite like being outdoors and doing things physical. I'd rather be in a cell somewhere reading a book. If that's an option, I don't know. I'm not suggesting that jail is an easy option, but I suppose it depends on the person. Let's go to the lines. We've got Jill on talking about community service. Hello, Jill.
Very good idea.
Yeah.
Because anything that keeps the place tidy is good. But is there any data as to the reoffending level? Is there reoffending after community service?
I don't know. I don't think we've got that data anyway. Whether or not the Department of Home Affairs has got it or not, I don't know.
And I mean, they used to have work gangs,
Yeah.
didn't they? Because I can remember when I was at college, we went past Lewis Prison in Sussex,
Yeah.
and there was a gang out, and they were actually in orange suits. But I don't think the legs were chained.
They weren't singing spirituals either, probably.
No. But, that would mean more prison staff, which undoubtedly can't be afforded.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, whether or not community service is a good idea. And the problem with it, I suppose, is that they can never tell the inmates where or when they're going to be going out and doing it, because otherwise there is the risk that, I mean, I know that getting drugs into the prison is one of the things that they're constantly trying to fight. So if the people on the outside of the prison know when somebody who's a prisoner is going to be in a certain place, they could hide drugs and things for them, couldn't they? So I suppose they've got to, the whole thing's got to be pretty secure as far as that's concerned.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But then, if the prisons were as secure as they're meant to be, drugs wouldn't be getting in, would they?
Absolutely. Well, this is one of those things that, whenever we hear these stories about the drugs problems in prisons, I sometimes think, well, why don't we have the American-style situation where, in visitors' room, there's actually a plate of glass between the person that you see and the visitors. If drugs is a problem, and it clearly is, then why aren't the people segregated? Or is that against human rights in our part of the world?
Oh, somebody would undoubtedly bring a case.
Yeah, I suppose
Forget about the human rights of their victims, but...
Yeah. So you think that, at least in terms of getting some work out of these people, it's a good thing, to tidy up and stuff. Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your call, Jill. It's always nice to hear from you. Stu, you wouldn't prefer jail if you were banged up 6 in a cell in Victoria Road with a lack of sanitary facilities. Let me just paraphrase what Bert said there. Yes, okay, fine, that's understandable. Robin Peel called. He says, I remember many, many years ago there was a work party near where we lived and the men were picking the apples off the tree in our garden. I told them that they shouldn't do it and they asked why. Then my mother came out and gave them a real tongue lashing for taking them. They were very sheepish about it when she challenged them, something I always remember, but I approve of work parties. Okay. And another one from Charles. Stuart, you can obtain Liberty books from Modern Library. New books come in each week and you can lie in your bed all day reading. Oh, that'd suit me. Equally, PlayStation are allowed. Newest games are ordered from Amazon, although you have to pay for the games. They can have 6 in a cell playing a game. Great banter. They could take a work party to do the Marine Drive. Yes, that's one of the thoughts, I suppose, Charles. I don't know. The trouble is, like I say, I expect that they have to move the work parties around so that people on the outside don't know where they're going to be. But I don't know. I'm not an expert in these things at all. If you've got a point of view about whether or not these work parties are a good idea, let's go to the line. We've got somebody who's prepared to talk about it, and it's Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Well, at one time in Vicky Road, they used to send quite a bus of the lads out to clean the beaches up, around the island, Castletown and so on.
Yes.
But beach buddies have taken that over now, so they can't do that.
They have. I mean, I'm aware, Andrew, that we've kind of digressed from the basic topic, which is whether or not community service is a good alternative to prison, rather than if you're in prison being sent out to do sort of stuff on work gangs. Do you think it's a good alternative?
Yes, because prison affects a person's life, his working prospects for the future forever. Once he's been in prison, he might possess a ladybird's worth of cannabis or something, and he'll get 3 weeks in there, and they can't get a job after that. So what's he do? Regresses.
But isn't it the case that you're still given, you'd still have some sort of a criminal record, even if you were given a community service order?
A criminal record for doing next to nothing.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, it's the law, so I suppose that if you've got laws, then if you don't stick to them, you've got to take the consequences. All right, so you think that community service isn't a bad idea, basically, Andrew?
It's an excellent idea, and I've done a bit of them myself up at Nobles Park. I had them all this time, except it was the depths of winter, and I was digging a stone-hard path, down to the outside somewhere.
Oh, proper hard labour.
I didn't really like it much, but it was great fun. I would do community service for nothing anyway, if they will have me, I'm going to work at the Salvation Army for nothing, if they'll have me down there, dishing out soup or whatever they want me to do.
Good man. All right. Well, thank you very much for your call. Thank you for calling. Stu, I think there are 2 issues here, and as I see it, the community service talked about this morning was about giving that as a punishment as opposed to a jail sentence. You're right, Adrian. Not actually for the inmates. We've got a bit waylaid, probably my fault. I know some inmates do come out to do work in the community as rehabilitation, but Mr. Watterson said taking a weekend out of somebody's life to do manual work for the community was a punishment, which says to me he was talking about new or reoffenders. I think we're getting bogged down here with the inmates, so I see this as an alternative to jail time. Thank you, Adrienne. Yes, you're right. It is an alternative to jail time, the way that we're looking at it. I believe it costs about £800 a week to keep somebody in prison, and that's funded by the taxpayer. Thus, if a CSO is appropriate, it certainly helps our pockets, says Stuart. Well, yeah, the finances of it, we'd not thought about that particularly, had we? But yeah. I think too many people get ridiculously short prison sentences as it is, hence why so many people reoffend. Offering community service to these people is an insult to the law-abiding citizens. I say offer it to under 16s, yes, but over that age, then do the crime, you do the time. Gentleman said on air, prison affects the person. How about the effect that crime has on people that the criminal has committed? Yes, you're absolutely right. That's from Rebecca. And Stu, I think you call the Jill and some of your emailers, possibly you yourself, are confusing prison work parties with community service. It did go that way, yeah. Prison work parties are groups of prisoners taken out of the prison to do work for the community. Community service is a sentence in its own right, where persons are not sentenced to imprisonment but are sentenced by the court to give up some of their spare time to carry out a given number of hours community work. That from David. Thank you, David. Yeah, you're quite right. We did get sidetracked. Well, we do sometimes, don't we? And we've got Viv on who wants to have a word about this. Hello, Vivian.
Hello.
Yeah.
How are you, Stu?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. What's your thought on this?
Well, the community service have done work down this way for us, so I have worked with them.
Oh, yeah.
And the group that was down here, they were a nice group. I mean, I had no problem with the group, but they were aged between about 16 and 22.
Right.
And they were doing a big painting job. Now, they only had one person supervising them. And to me, they needed more supervision for that. Because probably half of them had never had a paintbrush in their hand before. Yeah. You understand me there.
More paint everywhere else than, yeah.
Yes, and they really weren't taught how to clean up after themselves neither.
Right.
But, I mean, I think the principle is very good.
Okay.
But if there was more supervision, they would learn more.
And how many were there on the work gang?
Well, sometimes there could be 4 and sometimes there could be 14.
Right.
Whether they turned up.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there didn't seem to be any rule on them turning up. Nobody went to look for them.
Right, okay.
And they were picked up. They arrived here about 10 to 1:30 in the morning, and they were gone again by 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yes.
Because they all had to be back home by a certain time.
I have heard reports of people who've been sent to jail for breaching community service orders, so
yeah.
I assume there is some sort of a check and balance in there.
But, I mean, I'm not criticising the actual idea of it. I just think it needs tightening up.
Yes.
And perhaps a bit more supervision so that they actually learn something from it.
Well, a bit of training before you go rather than just take you somewhere and then put a paintbrush in your hand.
Yeah, but I mean, I know of other outdoor jobs they've done within the community, and they've done good jobs there, but there again, it wasn't in a building.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Yes.
But I'm not kicking it, but I just think some more supervision would be very helpful.
I guess that an awful lot of the things that they do are pretty unskilled, things like litter collection and stuff like that. So you don't really need to be trained to do that. But if you, like you say, if you're painting, then...
Yeah, well, one job they did was on Solby Claddock. I don't know whether you're ever down on Solby Claddock, but there's lots of fences.
Yes.
And they creosoted all those and all the stobs that are around and everything. And it made the place look lovely.
Yeah.
It tidied it up, and everybody commented on how well it looked.
Oh, brilliant.
So, I'm not kicking them. It's just I'm trying to be constructive with my remarks.
We always like constructive, certainly. Thank you very much for your call, Vivian. Good to hear from you. Stu, after many years working in prison, my own personal opinion is that CSOs should be given where possible. Unfortunately, work parties aren't really an option, in my opinion, as the type of prisoners locked up differ to what they used to be, and the sentences are longer. That from Colin, thank you. I did a spell in Victoria Road as well, says somebody, and I got the opportunity to go out and work with a family because I was seen as being low risk. There were 3 or 4 of us lads who went out each week to help a family whose son had been in a motorbike accident, was in a poor state. We helped the father with things like the son's exercises. Really opened my eyes, made me realise what the important things in life are, and not do anything that would take me back to prison. Yes, certain people should be locked up for offences, but community service could help in some cases, make people feel a lot better about things. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
You're listening to the latest Talking Heads podcast, featuring highlights from the programme over the past week.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Is scrapping the idea of introducing red squirrels to the Manx countryside the best option? It was announced yesterday we won't be seeing red squirrels on the island anytime soon. The Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture went out to public consultation on a proposal to allow their introduction earlier this year. It received over 100 submissions, many of which favoured the idea. The animals have been under pressure in the UK as numbers of non-native grey squirrels have increased. However, DEFRA Minister Richard Ronan told Howard Kane, having considered all the evidence, there isn't currently a case to allow the animals onto Manx shores. Is this the right decision? Do you welcome the news that red squirrels won't be introduced to the Isle of Man at this stage, or is it a missed opportunity? Stu, I'm very disappointed about the red squirrels. It would have been great for the island. I'm aware that people feel that they're not an indigenous species, but they're not destructive like the greys, don't carry disease, and will only eat birds' eggs when the main diet is scarce. Short-sighted, I think, says Susie. But this is an interesting text. Hi, Stu, red squirrels are here already. I saw one about 4 or 5 weeks ago, says John. It probably rode here on the back of a golden eagle from the UK somewhere. Do you think I might watch too much Disney? I think they ought to introduce golden eagles, actually. I like watching birds flying around. I love watching the gulls on Douglas Head here. And I think the occasional golden eagle would add to the mix quite nicely. I don't know about you. Squirrels, don't know. I've never noticed any particularly. Don't have a strong feeling about it. But the experts seem to think it would have been a bad idea bringing red squirrels over here. So got to go along with that. Do you agree with them? Do you think it was a good idea or not? Andrew called. He said, if they get the way with introducing red squirrels, I'm not sure that your idea of introducing golden eagles would be a good one. There won't be many red squirrels left. Well, no, I don't suppose so. And you'd have to enforce a no-fly zone or something during lambing as well, I expect, if we had golden eagles. I'm a town boy. I've said that in the past. You know, I find the countryside generally a bit disagreeable and smelly. And animals are all out to try and sort of, you know, bite you or scratch you or sting you or whatever. So I'm not really a countryside dweller. Don't know much about it. But I do like watching birds at times. And gulls, seagull, herring gull, I just think of the most beautifully streamlined things, and I could quite happily sit up here at Douglas Head with a flask and a deck chair and just watch them soaring over Douglas Head. I think they're the most beautiful birds, and having seen films in the past of golden eagles do the same thing but on a bigger scale, I think that could be quite good as well. But yeah, maybe stray pets, that would solve that problem as well. If we had golden eagles here, just a small squadron of them would be fine. Andrew says, I enjoy the show and your comments. Good, all meant in jest, of course, Andrew, but if you've got a serious point of view about golden eagles, about red squirrels, don't be shy, get in touch. I believe our native squirrels were wiped out by badgers, who in turn were eaten by the foxes. I thought we didn't have foxes. Reminds me of that old joke about the hat. If granted enough money, I'm sure that a consultant could be found to study this, says Tom. You're probably right. About anything, really. If there's enough money there, then a consultant will pop up somewhere. Put them in the wildlife park, then escape like wallabies. Well, yes. Just thinking outside the box on this, so we're not going to get red squirrels. What would you like to see? Kangaroos? I mean, we've got wallabies already. Let's go to the lines. We've got Ian on about red squirrels. Hello, Ian.
I think it's a bit of a shame that the minister simply says that the balance of scientific argument is that it wouldn't be right to introduce red squirrels.
Okay.
I can give you the scientific argument, and I do support it, and those who would like to introduce red squirrels can check it out for themselves. If you go on the net and look at the natural predators of red squirrels, they're listed as things such as goshawks, pine martens, stoats, and buzzards.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, I don't think we've got any of those on the Isle of Man.
Okay.
Now, if you introduce a species which we don't appear to have evidence of having lived on the Isle of Man, like that, into what are otherwise ideal conditions for its development, then the population is going to rapidly grow to the point where it becomes damaging and a menace.
Yeah.
And in that situation, the people who would like to see them introduced, because they are very attractive to look at, to observe, would then have to accept they'd either have to be shot, trapped or poisoned in order to cull their numbers to keep them in a manageable level.
I see. So are you saying that they should be brought over but managed, or are you saying that it's better not to bring them over in the first place?
No, I can't see a way other than the three options of managing them I've suggested, unless you start introducing their natural predators.
Yeah.
The problem with that, as everybody who's tried this in different countries has found, the species you introduce to manage the species you introduce, then promptly attack the things and reduce the population to the things that make your ecology different, attractive, and bring people to observe it.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm no sort of country matters expert in any manner of means. So, do we have grey squirrels here? Because they're causing problems across, aren't they, for the red squirrel population?
No, we don't know. We have no squirrels of
no squirrels at all. Then,
right,
good stuff. All right, Ian. Thank you very much for your expert advice on that. Nice to hear from you today. Thank you very much indeed. Stu, tigers are endangered. Let's have a few of them too, and maybe some rhinoceros. Just a thought, says Jack. Tigers, lions and tigers, that'd be good. Rename the Sulby Claddocks the Serengeti or whatever. Other than waste our money, why did Mr. Ronan bother with a public consultation over red squirrels when the result was going to be of no consequence? It was obvious that the scientific opinion was the informed and important one. Another example of an inadequate political decision, says Dave. Okay. We should introduce some dinosaurs. There'll be some looking for a good home once Ledgecoy is scrapped. Cheers from Augustus. You see what you did there, Augustus? We're talking about wildlife and you brought it back to politics. How did you manage that? Roy says, how about one or two crocodiles? I expect we've probably got one or two crocodiles already. Red squirrels, Stu, I think that you've just been trolled by that comment about the badgers having been eaten by foxes. Well, I wouldn't be at all surprised, to be honest, Delboy, because I know nothing at all about wildlife, so I could easily be fooled. As we all know, says Del, the red squirrels on the Isle of Man were eaten by the snakes. Ah, right. That wasn't a wind-up. I don't know if there are lots, but there's definitely one red squirrel in the Isle of Man. Okay, all right. We could breed red squirrels, then trap them and export them back to the UK. Boom! Problem solved. What is this boom that people do now? And mic drops. What's a mic? Boom! Mic drop. That's from Augustus. Good, thank you. Stu, my inner smarty pants pedant has just surfaced, says Mark. You said that with the introduction of tigers to the island, it could be compared to the Serengeti, but you don't get tigers in the Serengeti. Only in Asia. I've heard the Toto song. We could get more. I would get out more, but I'm scared of being eaten by a giant feline predator. Regards from Mark. Thank you, Mark. And final word to Jim. He says, I think we should introduce tarantulas to spice up the countryside and add a touch of frisson to rambling. Yeah, well, that'd keep me out of the countryside absolutely, completely, forever, I would think.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Should the role of MHKs and commissioners need to be more clearly defined? Castletown MHK and former Commissioner Richard Ronan thinks that they should. He believes that the positions run along blurred lines. There's a video there somewhere. A statement he repeated in evidence to Lord Lisvane during his inquiry last week. It suggested the Commissioner's role is being diluted because members are keen to secure votes in their constituencies for the next general election. But not everyone shares Mr Ronan's views. Should there be a clear distinction between the responsibilities of local authority members and MHKs? Is it inevitable that there'll be some overlap when it comes to looking after the interests of the people in any particular area? Or should MHKs be fully focused on national issues and international issues to a point rather than local concerns? Got our first caller on this topic. It's our friend Vivian. Hello, Vivian.
Local authorities and MHKs can work very well together if you have a good relationship with your MHK. And don't let them take over what the commissioners are supposed to be doing. Now, through the Municipal Association, that's all but bar 5 of the local authorities on the Isle of Man, who meet once a month, we actually invite the MHKs to come and talk to us and tell us what their jobs are and try and let them know that we are quite capable of doing a lot of the things that people ask them to do. Because people think they will get things done better by going to their MHK.
And surely that's not the case often, because the commissioners have got a better handle on a lot of things, haven't they?
Exactly. But how do you change a population's view of politics?
Well, it's life in general. You know, if you go into a shop with a complaint, you want to see the manager.
Exactly.
and the manager might not be the best person to deal with your complaint. It might be the counter assistant.
Yes. But as I say, we're fortunate enough in the north. We have a good working relationship with our MHK.
Yeah.
And I think it does work. Plus, if I may say, the government in the last 18 months, 2 years, have thrown an awful lot of things at the local authorities.
Yes.
And we are all trying to take them on. It all takes time and working out with government to get everything organised.
Yes.
And that's not an easy thing to do.
You see,
This is my view, Stu, nobody else's.
No, I understand that. You're not speaking for the commissioners or anything.
No.
Just a thought that I've just moved house fairly recently, and I know who my MHK is, but I wouldn't have a clue. I don't even know where the commissioners' offices are where I live now. And so, do you think that maybe there's a need for commissioners to raise the profiles a little bit? I
quite agree with you. But if you look in the telephone book, every local authority's telephone number is there.
Yes, yeah.
And there's always somebody, if you can't get the actual clerk, you can get an answer phone, and that is answered the next day.
Yeah.
So there is always somebody somewhere to respond to your inquiry.
So what's the lesson that we need to take from this, Vivian? That if you've got a local issue, then, probably more times than not, you'd be better off going to your local commissioners or the council, talking to them. And if you can't get satisfaction, you can always upgrade it, can't you, and go to an MHK? You can,
yes. But more often than not, 95% of the time, the local authority can probably solve your problem.
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yeah, I've got a theory about this as well, which is that you get back what you give out. So I think that if you get in touch with the local authority and you're pleasant, but you make a firm point about something, you're more likely to get some answers than if you phone up and you're shouting and carrying on alarmingly.
Yeah.
I guess that there is an element of that as well, in that, people go to their MHK because they feel as though they're not being listened to, but maybe it's their approach that's wrong.
It could be, but as I say, we find most of our constituents or parishioners, call it what you like, are quite good to come to us as commissioners and talk to us, and we will try and do our best to solve the problem. Sometimes a simple thing we can solve easier than what an MHK can.
Of course, yeah. Good stuff. All right, good to talk to you, and I hope you're feeling better soon. But
I'm all right.
I'm very glad that we've had you on the phone today. Hi, Stu. Let local authorities deal with potholes, etc. If only. Even the department can't deal with this trivial problem. They think sending a couple of guys out to throw a bag of bitumen-coated grit into a hole, which is as bad as ever in a couple of weeks, is dealing with the problem. Mr. Gorn commented that he found a few bob in his pocket, so resurfaced the slock. Well, if he manages to find any more, could I suggest he deals with the potholes, as they should be, and if there's anything left, paint a few white lines and halt signs, says Ray. If local authorities each deal with roads, etc., you'll end up with a situation you get in the UK where you can tell when you cross county borders by the state of the roads. We noticed this when riding a bike from Worcestershire. The effort that MHKs put in on local issues behind the scenes usually leads to an increase in their vote. Peter Caron's a good example of this. That's from Robin Peel. Thank you, Rob. In 15 years, I've only seen one of my MHKs in Russian. That from Roy.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
That's it for the latest look back at Talking Heads. Our thanks as ever to everyone who took part in the programme. If you'd like to get involved in the discussion, you can call, text or email between midday and 2 p.m. on weekdays, or you can share your thoughts anytime on the Facebook page. That's Talking Heads with Stu Peters. You can listen back to each day's programme in full using the on-demand section of manxradio.com. And the website's also where you'll find an update of what's being discussed on the programme each day. You can also keep up to date with that information by liking the Facebook page or following Stu Manx on Twitter. And if there's anything you think we should be discussing on the programme, let us know by emailing talk@manxradio.com. But that's it for now, so until next time, goodbye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.